What up, punkheads? Welcome back to a brand new Friday Fright Review. I'm AJPunk 15, and this time we're going to be talking about the 2016 horror film directed by Adam Wingard, Blair Witch. Blair Witch is a soft reboot slash remake of the original Blair Witch project, so technically it is a sequel to the film, but it also acts as a soft reboot slash remake of the film, kind of like Creed and The Force Awakens did earlier in 2015. The film centers around James and his three friends Lisa, Peter, and Ashley. They find a videotape on YouTube that basically describes everything that he's been looking for his whole life. We find out that the original person in the first film, Heather, is in fact his sister. And so James contacts the person who uploaded the YouTube film and says, hey, where did you find this film? And the uploader did tell James that it did find it in Burkittsville, Maryland, in the Black Hills / Black Woods, where the original Blair Witch took place. So James and his three friends ship up to take all kinds of new technology like drones and GoPros and fancy lights and satellite GPSs, and they go there, meet Lane and his girlfriend. Lane is the uploader of video, and Talia is his girlfriend, and they all go in the woods together. They all start to tell stories of their experiences. We find out that James' friend Peter was actually his best friend back in the day, and he actually helped look for his sister Heather around the time in the original film, but nothing was ever found. They're basically looking for the Blair Witch house, the house that was in the final scenes of the first film. No one has ever found that house. All the researchers and people that went out looking for his sister never did find that house, so that's what they're looking for now, considering this new tape has brought to light the fact that maybe James' sister Heather is still alive after all these years. The director of this film, Adam Wingard, I'm a huge fan of. I almost own every one of his films. I'm a huge fan of The Guest. It came out last year and I absolutely loved it. It's a great film to watch around Halloween. Even though it's not a horror film, it is technically centered around the Halloween time. Your Next is another great horror film that this director has done. It had a little bit of comedic elements in it as well, but it was well directed, and it was one of those horror films that took the original concept of a final girl and flipped it up on its head, and it's very, very fun and entertaining to watch Sharni Vincent just caught up everyone. That being said, I think this is his weaker of the three films that I've seen of his so far. One of the girls early on in the film cuts her foot, and it comes into play in some weird way that had a lot of people throwing up in the theater, actually making the sounds and putting their popcorn bags up to their face, because it was a very gross scene that honestly didn't fit in this film at all, and it made no sense. It was like it was shoehorned in, and I don't know what Wingard was going for with the film, but it just didn't work. The scenes in which every person is picked off one by one, similar to the first film, were actually enjoyable. I will say that much about this part of the film, that those scenes were actually quite enjoyable. Once the tension started to build and you got different characters being picked off, it was actually really enjoyable. Now when they got to the finale of the film, that was some intense shit. Some of the most intense moments I've ever witnessed on film for this magnitude. There's a very claustrophobic scene that you've seen in the trailer, so it's not a spoiler. Someone crawls through a tunnel. That was some really, really cool stuff. My one biggest flaw of this film, and it's a minor spoiler, so if you don't want it, skip the next 10 seconds, but they kind of showed the Blair Witch a little bit, and I wasn't happy about that. When this film first came out, I might have been 7 or 8 years old, and it was this big thing on all over TV and the internet, and everything you can see, it was about the Blair Witch Project and how freaky it is and how it's based on a true story and all this internet stuff and the websites that they had hooked up for all this movie, that it was so believable. You actually thought that this was a real film and these people were actually missing. All that mystery and suspense of is it actually a real film or not is lost with this film, and we know it's not, so it's not as creepy anymore. It's not back then. It worked when the movie came out in 1998 or 1999. Don't quote me on the date. I think it's 99. When it first came out, it worked. Internet was just coming around, television and stuff. There wasn't a lot of spoilers put out for TV and films at that time because of the lack of internet and lack of social media. So that film worked. It was actually scary. I remember, I can still remember some of my friends saying they'll never watch that film because it's based on true stories and it's basically a modern stuff film at that time. But to say it's a bad horror film it's not a bad horror film. It's just not as good as the original, because the original had this mystery and suspense suspense about it that this one doesn't have anymore. Even the end of this film is as suspenseful and as tense as the film is towards the end of the last 10-15 minutes of the film. It just, you kind of don't care as much as the original film anymore because you know it's not a real movie. And that's what made the first one so scary, is that a lot of people thought it was a real film. Some people ran out of the theater screaming and crying at the first film because like they were like, hey, we gotta save these people. And I can remember that. I remember sitting in my neighbor's house right across the way here, sitting back and watching the Blair Witch Project for the first time and being freaked out. It was airy and chilly, and then you realize towards the end of it, like, this isn't a real film. This is not like a found footage film. It's just a movie. But leading up to that, you didn't know the difference. Everyone was saying it was a real film, and of course the evening opening says so. But in this, it says it, and you're just like, we already know it's not a real film, so why pretend it is? That's my biggest negative of this film. I think the performances are great. The scares with the Blair Witch itself are great. The last 10-15 minutes are absolutely phenomenal in this film. There is somewhat of a time travel element to this film, and it just didn't work. For myself, I just didn't like it. It didn't make much sense to me, and I get it, what they were trying to do with it just didn't make much sense. So all this being said, I'm going to give the Blair Witch a 7 out of 10. It's not a bad horror film, but it's also not a great one either. A lot of the illusion and mystery of the first film is not found in this one, and that's my biggest flaw. It's not as good as the original, and it's trying to be a remake of the original, but it can't work like that because we already know it's not real. The first one had that mystery. Anyway guys, I really hope you enjoyed my review. I know this film is getting critically acclaimed right now, and all the people are saying that, hey, this is a great horror film and great studio horror films, but honestly, in my opinion, I don't think it is. I think it's a good 10-15 minute ending, but other than that, I think a lot of people are missing the fact that all the suspense and tension of the first film was because everyone thought it was real. And all that being said, guys, I really hope you enjoyed my review. Stay tuned. I'm going to have a Friday Fright review every Friday leading up to Halloween in this month, so that's like 5 of these reviews or something. And also, I'm going to be continuing my Halloween retrospective with reviews leading up to Halloween night of Halloween 1 and 2 combined reviews. So look forward to that, and as always, take care and stay frosty. Happy October.